Throughout the vast history of the Star Wars galaxy, there are rarely and scarcely anything that remains a constant. And normally within the depths of the galaxy, many beings always change their identities or modify how they do, and how they work as human beings. For example, Princess Leia was a princess of Alderaan and grew up to be one of the most pivotal influential figures of the Rebel Alliance. Similarly, Han Solo, the famous smuggler, was originally a smuggler who was just some guy who occasionally took the bounty in order to make a living with his pal Chewbacca. And eventually, he became the general of the rebels. The most famous one of these is obviously the slave boy Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker, who hailed from nothing but possessed unprecedented and unmatched force sensitivities that was unrivaled by anyone from all of time, with the exception of perhaps their offspring and Emperor Valkorion. However, there is one thing that has remained a constant, that being that the Sith's eternal goal is to overthrow the Jedi. Throughout the history, we have seen the Sith barely overthrow the Jedi only once, during the events of Order 66, where Palpatine, the technological mastermind and political genius that he is, activated Order 66 by inbuilting Kaminoan inhibitor chips within the Grand Army of the Republic and the Clone Troopers. He turned the Grand Army of the Republic's own army against them, preventing them from ever knowing what was going on until it was far too late. However, today we are going to be breaking down the times that the Sith nearly took over the Jedi and nearly dominated and subjugated them, going from Jedi purges to instances where the Jedi and Sith were equally matched. There is a certain amount of criteria we need to meet. The first one is the Sith have to have the Jedi on the back pedal. We are not just talking about one battle. For example, we could go with the Battle of Ruusan, where Lord Khan and the Brotherhood of Darkness possess the advantage over the Jedi for a multitude of the time there. However, today we are only focusing on the times where the Sith outlawed and completely pushed back the Jedi to near extinction, or at least caused the primary body of the Jedi to go into hiding. So my acolytes, join us, grab a snack as we explore how this occurred. The first instance we are going to be taking into account is the era of one known as Tulak Hord, the greatest lightsaber duelist to ever emerge from the Sith Order. Tulak Hord and the Jedi engaged in a secret conflict that is unknown currently at the time. Before the reign of Marco Ragnos, roughly around 6000 BBY, and just after the reign of Darth Andedu, Tulak Hord was a primal warrior and a pure brute of the dark side of the Force. Tulak Hord honed his abilities in lightsabers to break two strongholds on Sith worlds that were laid by the Jedi single-handedly, putting his skills in place in order to batter down thousands of Jedi. This is the reason we have placed Tulak Hord's era and his crusade against the Jedi in this tier. Tulak Hord inspired so much fear he was capable of felling thousands of Jedi single-handedly across multiple battles, single-handedly, only using his fear inspiration and his raw skill with the blade in order to decimate the Jedi ranks, including Padawans, Masters, Knights, and even stuff that exceeds this, and the various ranks within the Jedi Order. This is prematurely why we have put Tulak Hord's empire and the reign of Tulak Hord in this tier, because Tulak Hord felled thousands of Jedi. At the time, there was only around 5,000 Jedi, if that at all. Nowhere near the amount there would be during the era of the pre-Clone Wars era, before Dooku rebelled the Jedi Order. There was only about 5,000 Jedi, with Tulak Hord single-handedly slaying thousands of them with his own lightsaber. He certainly nearly drove the Jedi to extinction and certainly dominated them, and would have most likely subjugated the entire galaxy to his will if he had not been stabbed in the back by his own apprentice. Moving on, we have the event that directly co-aligns with this. Moving on, in the timeline, we have decided to place Revan and Malak's Sith Crusade. While they never exterminated the Jedi Order to the level that Horde did, these two's crusade barely make it on the list as they nearly succeeded in decimating the Jedi, bringing them to their knees in a foul series of savage strikes. Revan was a tactical prodigy, and a prodigy in the Force as well as in the Blade. He killed Jedi by the dozen, slaying all of them, to the near extinction. He would have continued if Darth Malak had not betrayed him and forced his own flagship to fire on the ship Revan was on, causing him to be captured by the Jedi and rejuvenated into the light side of the Force, causing him Malak's overall defeat at the hands of the Starforged and Darth Revan, and now turned prodigal Jedi Knight Revan. These two, despite this, nearly subjugated the entire Republic, bringing it to their knees in a series of tactical, brutish strikes. Moving on, we have decided to place the famous battle where not only one, not two, but three powerful Sith Lords nearly destroy the Jedi, that being the era of the Sith Triumvirate and the first Jedi Purge. We're going to start off with Darth Trayer. Darth Trayer was the teacher and mentor to these two students that brought about the first Great Jedi Purge, something that Sidious would attempt to replicate decades and even millennia later. This being Darth Sion and Darth Nihilus. Darth Sion originally started by going on a crusade in Reverend Malik's empire. He slaughtered Jedi by the dozens. There was no being in the galaxy who was stated to be his equal in lightsaber combat, as Sion was stated to be on a completely different weight class, rivaling that of even Revan and Malik, although there is speculation he may even exceed that of Revan and Malik. Sion went on a brutal crusade, cutting down all Jedi who came in his path, and when he was finally met with one that could match his skill, he rejuvenated himself with the dark side, slicing down his surprised attacker. Nihilus, after joining with Trayer and the Sith Triumvirate, along with Sion, went on a brutal Jedi butchering spree, Darth Nihilus using his prowess over Force Drain to cleanse the Jedi from the galaxy. There was one instance when on Katar, the Jedi Master Atris, who was a respected Jedi Master, had lured over 100 Jedi to the world of Katar, leaking this information to Nihilus. If Atris had been more tactical and had not acted rashly, she might have been able to lay and devise a well-placed trap for the Lord of Hunger. However, she acted impatiently and rashly, ultimately resulting in Nihilus cleansing Katar of all its life and force energy, siphoning all the life from the Jedi into him, leaving only two people alive, Master Atris, who had escaped, and a woman called Visas Mar, who had become his shadow hand and apprentice. Sion, after Nihilus' death, continued to butcher Jedi, although this was largely diminished. Sion, while Nihilus was alive, still butchered dozens of Jedi, killing them by the dozen, going on a Jedi purging spree. It was speculated in the end Sion killed upwards of 30 Jedi, although this is personally speculation on my part, based on the impressive combat record we have received from Sion. Moving this, we enter the Great Galactic War, where we have the most famous sacking of Coruscant. The sacking of Coruscant, after the Sith Emperor Vitiate had feigned a treaty by having the leaders of the Jedi, including Satil Shan, meet with high-ranking Dark Counselors on the planet of Alderaan. Darth Malgus led the charge on the Jedi Temple along with 50 other Sith acolytes, along with his fellow rival Lord Adras and Darth Angron. They stormed the Jedi Temple, slaughtering all in their way. Malgus personally killed roughly 6 Jedi, including the famed Jedi Master Ven Zalo, the only being there who was worthy of Malgus' personal attention and praise in killing. Malgus destroyed the Jedi Temple, ushering a Sith orbital bombardment on the Jedi Temple. From this, the Jedi fell to ruin, although Malgus was not without honor, and laid the Jedi's corpses into the remains of the Jedi Temple, so they could rest in the place that they had defended so vivaciously, so fruitlessly, and so eternally, even in their deaths, as they were crushed by smouldering chunks of ash and rock. Afterwards, we all know the story. Vitiate feigned peace with the Republic, creating and signing a treaty of Coruscant. The Jedi were then exiled to Tython, with the Senate and Coruscantia Guard refusing to allow them to build their temple, believing that it would lead to more war on Coruscant that the Senator and Supreme Chancellor would not allow. The Jedi were exiled to Tython for roughly a decade, where a Cold War was waged between a multitude of different beings, and the hero of Tython rose to prominence, who would eventually kill the Sith Emperor Vitiate and drive him back into his eternal Emperor host of Valkorion. Which brings us swiftly onto the next entry, which is the Eternal Empire. Although this is technically not when the Sith dominated the Jedi, it was by the hand of an ancient Sith Lord, a powerful, nigh omniscient Sith Lord, that this entire purge played out. The Eternal Empire seemingly came out of nowhere, carved a path of destruction right in the middle of the Galactic War, with the Sith now scattered with the death of their Emperor. The Dark Lord was the centerpiece, and without him, the Empire was in shambles. The Jedi were attempting to hunt down and destroy any Sith sacred sites they could, as well as the remainders of the Order, very similar to how the Great Hyperspace War ended. Vitiate, now his host body of Valkorion, led the Eternal Empire, along with his sons Arcan and Thexan, on a series of well-planned brutal crusades on primary Jedi and Sith worlds. Arcan and Thexan slaughtered dozens of Jedi combined, killing them brutally, mercilessly, and effortlessly. Sion personally killed a multitude of Jedi, with Arcan personally having the more Jedi confirmed kill counts. They led a brutal crusade, launching attacks on worlds such as Korriban, the ancient homeworld of the Sith, and a multitude of others, during which Arcan lost his arm and was forced to wear a prosthetic and cybernetic in order to continue fighting, which only strengthened his connection to the dark side of the Force. Eventually, Valkorion was overthrown when the champion known as the Outlander was brought into his throne room. He was impaled by either the Outlander or Arcan, depending on how the player chooses to continue the story in Star Wars The Old Republic. Valkorion would then inhabit the Outlander as a spirit until he was frozen by carbonite by Senya Tira, who freed the Outlander in hope of liberating the galaxy. The Outlander then continued to lead a brutal crusade on Emperor Arcan, who now commanded the entire galaxy's forces using the Eternal Fleet, the vastest fleet the galaxy had ever built or seen. The Eternal Fleet was comprised of hundreds of thousands of ships that were all technologically advanced, made by an ancient spacefaring culture and race with unknown technology very similar to the Qua and the Rakata, as well as the Celestials. They were believed to be intergalactic in origin, hailing from a galaxy that was highly more technologically advanced than the Star Wars galaxy. Arcan controlled the entire galaxy now, as he had subjugated both Jedi and Sith with the aid of Valkorion. Valkorion had set up the pieces, and now Arcan had merely moved them into place. Following this, we obviously have to discuss the most prominent one that is ever included and occurred in the Star Wars galaxy, that being the time of Order 66, the darkest time that the galaxy has ever seen. Order 66 seemingly came out of nowhere, while beings like Grandmaster Yoda, Fives, Captain Rex, and beings received vision of it, including Yoda on Korriban when attempting to learn the secret to preserving one's consciousness after death. They never acted upon it, believing that the Republic and the Jedi were now too powerful to ever be overthrown by any Sith. However, when Anakin relayed the information to Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Aegon Kola, and Sayasay Tin that Palpatine was a Sith Lord, it was go time. Mace Windu took the four esteemed Jedi Masters up, where Palpatine disbanded all of them in swift succession, all except for Mace, who we left fighting against him, with Mace using Vapard, while feeding on Anakin's Shadow Point in order to best the Dark Lord. Eventually, Anakin's treachery showed through as he severed Mace's hand, leaving Mace prone to Palpatine's devastating, vaporizing Force lightning. Mace's body was flung from the Senate chambers and Palpatine's office, and Palpatine christened the new Sith Lord Darth Vader, stating that all beings in the galaxy that fell under the distinction of a Jedi, including Obi-Wan Kenobi, were now pure enemies of the Republic. Palpatine then issued in Order 66, where in roughly 5 minutes, perhaps even less, the entire Jedi Order was exterminated in one fell swoop. Only 30 Jedi were left in the aftermath, while the first Great Jedi Purge had incurred only roughly 100 Jedi to live, including the Jedi exile Mitra Surik, and the Jedi had largely gone into hiding. Palpatine perfected this to the greater degree than anyone in all of galactic history would ever do. Palpatine was far too intelligent. He ushered in at first to Commander Cody, then Captain Rex, and then the rest is history. Ayla Secura, Plo Koon, Even Peel, Adi Gallia, every single Jedi in the galaxy was exterminated, save for Yoda, Obi-Wan, and a few others, including Ahsoka Tano. Captain Rex, of course, would be converted from Order 66 after the inhibitor chip was removed from his brain circuitry, and he retained his own consciousness. In the end, Palpatine's galactic empire in Order 66 purged the galaxy of the Jedi and the light side, and ushered in a new Dark Age, far stronger and far gruesomer than any had ever experienced before. Before we get on to the last entry, we would like to place in a small mention for that of the Great Hyperspace War, led by Naga Sadow, widely regarded as the worst Sith Emperor, who could wrench fire from the stars and incur supernovas as well as solar flares using the Sith core set. The Great Hyperspace War almost saw the Jedi be defeated, as Naga Sadow, privy to his own power, utilized the Sith Corsair in order to create hundreds upon thousands of illusions, making it seem as if the Sith had overwhelming numbers and had been brooding for many millennia, amassing their forces, amassing fleets, entire archives of ships that attacked the Jedi. The Jedi were terrified at this, and some of them even abandoned their posts. The Republic thought fighting was useless. Naga Sadow utterly would have dominated the Empire, even had it not been for his own apprentice, the Republic Force-sensitive soldier, who had been turned to the dark side by Sadow, instantly betrayed him in the moment of limelight. Sadow's concentration was broken as his apprentice lunged on him with his own lightsaber. Naga Sadow's concentration broken, the illusions dissipated, the Republic regained their footing, the Sith knowing they had lost their critical advantage. Ultimately, this led to an absolute Sith cataclysm, as the majority of the Sith were driven into hiding, and ultimately led into Vitiate and the Great Galactic War. However, to conclude and cap off this list, we have decided to place in the era of the One Sith and Darth Krayt, someone we have been covering extensively here on the channel as of recent. Darth Krayt, the Dark Lord of the One Sith, the Dragon of the Sith, and the Dark Man, as known to some members of the Skywalker bloodline, ushered in an era of shadow and darkness that had not been seen and would never be seen afterwards until the age of Sidious. Darth Krayt, who reigned 120 years after the final death of Sidious in Dark Empire, plunged the galaxy into turmoil, where he unleashed Darth Nihil and a band of his other Sith assassins, Hands, and the most powerful Sith in the galaxy on the Jedi Academy on Ossus. He killed dozens of Jedi. He exterminated basically all of the Jedi Order in this one fell swoop, similar to Order 66, save for Cade Skywalker, who barely survived, as well as numerous amounts of other Jedi. In the wake of Darth Krayt's rule and his extermination of the Jedi, only roughly around 30 to 60 Jedi were alive, meaning it was the second most efficient purge that had ever plagued the galaxy of the Jedi. Cade Skywalker, the one Jedi that Krayt deemed too unworthy to live, he was the one conveniently that he didn't kill. Darth Krayt did not know of Cade Skywalker until he relayed the information of his mysterious healing ability that could possibly liberate him of the curse that was his Von growths that were growing inside him and that were becoming extremely deadly as time went on. Eventually, Krayt knew he would die, so he sought out Cade Skywalker and attempted to seduce him to the dark side. In the end, Emperor Roan fell, betrayed the Knights of the Empire, ultimately causing them to kill him, and plunge the galaxy back into an era of light. In the end, Cade used the Force, as well as deception and a bit of tricky wording, in order to defeat Darth Krayt, impaling him on the blade of his lightsaber, ending the Sith's rule by plunging him into the sun. After this, the Sith were relatively driven to extinction, something I also want to make a video about the final extinction of the Sith that occurred 150 years after Darth Sidious. However, this certainly taps off our list. What did you think? There are a lot more instances where the Sith nearly exterminated the Jedi than I originally anticipated, as I originally assumed it was only Order 66, and that was basically it. However, there is so much more. So my acolyte, I'll see you in a galaxy far, far away. Keep your wits about you. The Force will be with you. And remember, the galaxy is a strange place. However mysterious or powerful it may seem, the Force will be with you, no matter how dark or treacherous the road may seem.